Welcome to the Deep Sleep Science Channel. Tonight, we are embarking on a journey through the silent corridors of time, where the whispers of the past meet the deepest mysteries of the natural world. From the echoing chambers of ancient, ice-filled caverns to the haunting blueprints of houses built for ghosts, we will explore the riddles that have baffled explorers and scientists for generations. As the world outside grows quiet, let these stories of forgotten civilizations, celestial signals, and hidden wonders carry you into a state of calm curiosity. These are the tales etched into the earth and written in the stars' enigmas that remind us how much of our story is still waiting to be discovered in the shadows. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and prepare to uncover the secrets that lie just beneath the surface of the known. Deep in the heart of Turkey lies Göbekli Tepe, a place that challenges everything we thought we knew about the dawn of civilization. This incredible site features massive T-shaped limestone pillars, some weighing as much as 20 tons, which were carved and erected by people who lived long before the invention of metal tools. It is a mystery how these ancient builders managed such a feat of engineering, moving these giant stones and decorating them with intricate carvings of animals and symbols, creating a sacred space that predates the invention of agriculture and permanent housing. The Voynich manuscript is a mysterious book from the 15th century that has baffled the world's greatest codebreakers and linguists for hundreds of years. Within its aged vellum pages are detailed illustrations of plants and flowers that do not match any known species existing on Earth today. These drawings are accompanied by a fluid, elegant script that looks like a real language, yet it follows no known grammatical rules and has never been successfully translated, leaving the book's true purpose and the origin of its strange botanical subjects a complete enigma. The Antikythera mechanism is a truly remarkable artifact discovered in a Roman-era shipwreck near the island of Antikythera. This complex device, composed of more than 30 intricate bronze gears, is often called the world's first analog computer because it was designed to track the movements of the sun, the moon, and the planets. It was even capable of predicting solar and lunar eclipses with a level of scientific precision that was so advanced it would not be seen again in Europe for another 500 years, making us wonder just how much knowledge was lost to history. The Nazca lines in the high deserts of Peru are a series of enormous geoglyphs that are so large they can only be fully appreciated from the sky. These designs, which include vast geometric shapes and depictions of animals like spiders, monkeys, and hummingbirds, were created by removing the dark top layer of pebbles to reveal the lighter sand underneath. Because the area is incredibly arid, with almost no wind or rain, these delicate lines have remained preserved for over 2,000 years. Yet why the ancient Nazca people created such massive art that they themselves could never see from the ground remains a profound mystery. High in the mountains of Bolivia, the Tiwanaku ruins stand as a testament to a powerful empire that existed long before the Incas. One of the most famous structures there is the Gate of the Sun, a massive doorway carved from a single solid block of stone and decorated with complex astronomical carvings. The precision with which these stones were cut and fitted together is so extraordinary that it continues to puzzle archaeologists. As the Tiwanaku people achieved this level of architectural perfection without the use of modern machinery or iron tools. The Indus Valley civilization was one of the most advanced societies of the ancient world. Yet a major part of their culture remains a total secret because we cannot read their writing. They used a script consisting of about 400 unique signs found on small soapstone seals, often alongside beautiful carvings of animals. Despite over a century of research and the use of modern technology, no one has been able to decipher the meaning of these symbols. leaving the thoughts, laws, and stories of this great civilization locked away in B. Silence. The wow signal remains the most famous piece of evidence in the search for extraterrestrial life, detected by a radio telescope in 1977. For 72 seconds, a powerful narrowband radio signal arrived from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius, bearing all the hallmarks of a transmission from another world. It was so unexpected and strong that the astronomer who discovered it circled the data on the printout and simply wrote "Wow" in the margin. Despite many attempts to find it again, the signal has never been heard from since, leaving it as one of the most tantalizing unsolved mysteries of the space age. Near the Dead Sea, archaeologists discovered the Copper Scroll, a unique artifact that differs from all other Dead Sea Scrolls because it is made of pure metal. Instead of religious texts, this scroll contains a detailed list of 64 secret locations where immense amounts of gold and silver treasure were supposedly hidden to protect them from invaders. While the descriptions are very specific, they refer to landmarks and buildings from thousands of years ago that no longer exist, and to this day, not a single piece of the treasure mentioned in the scroll has ever been found. On the remote Easter Island, the Rongorongo script represents a unique and mysterious form of writing found on wooden tablets. The script is written in a style called reverse bastraphaden, which means the reader must turn the tablet 180 degrees at the end of every line to continue reading. There are only about 24 authentic tablets left in existence, and because the knowledge of how to read them died out with the island's ancestors, the stories and history recorded on these tablets remain a mystery that may never be solved. The sailing stones of Racetrack Playa in Death Valley are heavy boulders that move across the flat, dry lake bed, leaving long, winding tracks behind them in the mud. For decades, no one actually saw the stones move, leading to theories about magnetic fields or even supernatural forces. It was only recently discovered that during very rare winter conditions, a thin sheet of window pane ice forms and is broken up by the wind, allowing the ice to gently push the stones across the slick surface. But the sight of these heavy rocks, walking on their own, remains a hauntingly beautiful mystery of the natural world. The Piri Rise map is a fascinating nautical chart drawn by an Ottoman admiral in 1513 that shows the world as it was known at the time. What makes the map so mysterious is the incredible accuracy with which it depicts the coastline of South America, including features that were not supposed to have been discovered by Europeans yet. Some researchers have even claimed that the map shows the coast of Antarctica as it would look without its ice cover, leading to debates about whether ancient explorers possessed geographic knowledge that was lost for centuries. In a cave in the Sangsingdui region of China, archaeologists discovered a hoard of bronze artifacts that looked like nothing else found in Chinese history. The collection includes massive masks with protruding, alien-like eyes and elongated ears, belonging to a civilization that left no written records behind. This culture was highly advanced in bronze casting, but seemed to vanish abruptly around 1100 BC, possibly due to a catastrophic earthquake, leaving behind these silent, staring faces as the Baal. Only memory of their existence. The Mary Celeste is perhaps the most famous ghost ship in history, found drifting in the Atlantic Ocean in 1872 with absolutely no one on board. When the ship was boarded, it was discovered that the cargo was intact. The crew's personal belongings were still in their cabins, and a meal was even found ready to be served. Yet the lifeboat was gone and the captain's log and chronometer were left behind. There were no signs of a struggle or a storm, and the fate of the 10 people who were on that ship remains one of the ocean's most enduring and chilling mysteries. The Plain of Jars in the highlands of Laos is home to thousands of massive stone jars scattered across the landscape in clusters. Some of these jars are as tall as 3 meters and weigh several tons, carved from rock that was transported from miles away. While local legends say they were used by giants to store wine, archaeologists believe they may have been used in ancient burial rituals. However, exactly who built them and how they moved such heavy objects across the rugged terrain remains a mystery that is still being researched today. Stonehenge is a world-renowned monument, but one of its greatest mysteries is the origin of its smaller blue stones. These specific stones were not local to the site, but were transported from the Preseli Hills in Wales, which is about 140 miles away from the Salisbury Plain. For Neolithic people without wheels or advanced machinery, moving these multi-ton stones over such a vast distance, across hills and potentially over water, was an almost impossible task, yet they did it, leaving us to wonder about the deep significance these stones must have held for them. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon are the only one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world whose actual physical location has never been found by archaeologists. Described by ancient writers as a lush, ascending series of tiered gardens with trees and flowers, they were said to be a marvel of engineering. However, excavations in the city of Babylon have failed to find any evidence of them. This has led some historians to suggest the gardens were actually located in the city of Nineveh, or perhaps that they were a beautiful myth rather than a physical reality. The lost colony of Roanoke is one of the oldest mysteries in American history, involving over 100 English settlers who vanished from an island off the coast of North Carolina. When a supply ship returned to the colony after a 3-year delay, they found the settlement completely deserted with no sign of a struggle. The only clues left behind were the word Croatoan carved into a wooden post and the letters Crow carved into a tree. To this day, no one knows for certain if the colonists were attacked, if they moved to live with local tribes, or if they perished during a severe drought. Deep in the mountains of Japan, submerged under the sea off the coast of Yonaguni Island, lies a massive stone structure that looks like a stepped pyramid. It features flat surfaces, sharp right angles, and what look like staircases and pillars. While some geologists believe it is a natural formation created by tectonic activity and underwater erosion, many others are convinced it is a man-made monument from a lost civilization that was swallowed by the sea at the end of the last ice age. The Phaistos disk is a small clay circle found on the island of Crete that is covered on both sides with a spiral of stamped symbols. Because the symbols were made using 45 unique stamps, it is considered the earliest known example of movable type printing in the world. However, because this is the only object ever found with this specific script, there is no way to compare it to other texts to figure out what it says. It remains a silent message from the Minoan civilization, waiting for a key that may never be found. The Great Blue Hole of Belize is a giant submarine sinkhole that appears as a perfectly dark blue circle in the middle of the turquoise ocean. Scientific diving expeditions have explored its depths and found massive stalactites and stalagmites hanging in the underwater caves. These formations can only form in dry caves, proving that this massive hole was once a dry cavern on land before the sea levels rose at the end of the last ice age and flooded the system, leaving us with a beautiful but mysterious window into the Earth's ancient past. Carbon dating is a scientific process used to determine the age of organic materials, and when it was applied to the Voynich manuscript, it placed the vellum between 1404 and, quote, 1438. This specific time frame anchors the manuscript to the early Renaissance, providing a chronological context for its creation, even though the contents remain a mystery. The vellum used for the Voynich manuscript is made of animal skin, and the fact that it dates so consistently suggests that all the pages were prepared at roughly the same time. This consistency helps researchers rule out the idea that the book was compiled from fragments written over many different centuries. When experts analyzed the handwriting throughout the Voynich manuscript, they noticed subtle changes in the style and pressure of the pen. This led to the conclusion that at least 5 different scribes contributed to the writing, suggesting that the manuscript was a significant project involving a small group of people rather than a lone author. The gears within the Antikythera mechanism were cut from a single sheet of bronze with incredible precision. The fact that ancient metalworkers could create such fine, interlocking teeth shows a level of technical skill that was far ahead of its time. The metonic cycle, which the Antikythera mechanism was designed to track, is a period of approximately 19 years after which the phases of the moon recur on the same days of the year. Tracking this allowed ancient people to synchronize their solar and lunar calendars. In addition to astronomical events, the Antikythera mechanism featured a dial that listed the names of the various Pan-Hellenic games. This shows that the device was not just for scientists, but was a practical tool for keeping track of the most important cultural and sporting events in the Greek world. The limestone pillars at Göbekli Tepe are decorated with bas-relief carvings of various animals, including foxes, lions, scorpions, and vultures. These carvings provide a rare glimpse into the symbolic and spiritual world of the people who lived over 11,000 years ago. Because Göbekli Tepe is roughly 6,000 years older than Stonehenge, it forces historians to rethink the timeline of human development. It suggests that the desire to build large, complex structures for ritual purposes may have been the catalyst for people settling down into permanent communities rather than the other way around. The absence of hearths, trash pits, or domestic houses at Göbekli Tepe suggests that no one lived there permanently. Instead, it seems people traveled from far away to gather at the site for specific ceremonies or seasonal events before returning to their nomadic lives. The Nazca Desert is one of the driest places on Earth, receiving less than an inch of rain per year. This extreme aridity is the primary reason the Nazca lines have not been washed away by erosion over the millennia. The geoglyphs in Nazca were made using a very simple but effective technique. The dark, iron-rich stones on the surface were moved aside to expose the lighter, yellowish sand underneath. This contrast creates the lines we see from the sky. The astronaut figure at Nazca is particularly interesting because it is one of the few geoglyphs located on a hillside. Most of the other figures are found on the flat plains, leading to theories that different figures served different purposes or were meant to be seen from different perspectives. Scientific monitoring at Racetrack Playa used GPS trackers to finally solve the mystery of the sailing stones. The data confirmed that the stones only move when a perfect combination of rain, freezing temperatures, and light wind occurs at the same time. The window pane ice that moves the sailing stones is incredibly thin, often only a few millimeters thick. When this ice begins to melt and break up, it acts like a giant sail, catching the wind and providing enough force to glide the heavy boulders across the slippery mud. The soapstone seals found in the Indus Valley were often used to press designs into clay or wax. This suggests they may have been used by merchants to mark their goods, much like a modern brand or a signature. Most Indus Valley inscriptions are very short, which makes it even harder for linguists to find patterns in the language. Without longer texts to analyze, it is difficult to determine if the script represents sounds, words, or concepts. The Rosetta Stone was the key to Egyptian hieroglyphs because it contained the same message in 3 different scripts. The fact that no similar bilingual text has been found for the Indus script is the main reason it remains one of the world's great undeciphered mysteries. The jars on the plain of Laos are made from a variety of stones, including sandstone and limestone. Some jars even feature heavy stone lids, suggesting they were designed to be sealed for a long period of time. Local legends in Laos offer a colorful explanation for the jars, suggesting they were built by a race of giants to celebrate a great military victory with massive amounts of rice wine. While a myth, it reflects the deep cultural impact these objects have on the local people. Archaeologists have found human remains and burial goods near some of the stone jars in Laos. This has led to the theory that the jars were part of a complex funerary process, where bodies were placed in the jars to decompose before the bones were buried nearby. The Dancing Plague of 1518 is a documented historical event where people in Strasbourg danced for days on end without stopping. At its height, the plague affected up to 400 people, some of whom reportedly died from exhaustion or heart failure. One scientific theory for the dancing mania is ergot poisoning, which occurs when people eat bread made from rye contaminated with a specific fungus. This fungus can cause hallucinations and involuntary muscle spasms, which might have looked like dancing to observers. The Preseli Hills in Wales, where the Stonehenge bluestones originated, contain a specific type of rock called spotted dolerite. This geological fingerprint allowed scientists to trace the stones back to their exact source 140 miles away. How the bluestones were moved from Wales to Stonehenge remains a subject of intense experimentation. Researchers have tried using wooden sleds, rollers, and even rafts to see if it was possible to transport such heavy loads across the ancient landscape. The Lady of the Dunes was a mystery that lasted for nearly 50 years, involving an unidentified woman found in the dunes of Provincetown. It was only recently, through advanced DNA technology and forensic genealogy, that she was finally identified, bringing a measure of closure to a long-standing cold case. The mysteries of our world often begin with the very land beneath our feet, and few places are as enigmatic as the Sajama lines in the high Altiplano of Bolivia. These lines form a staggering network that covers approximately 700 square miles, creating a web of perfectly straight paths that cut through the rugged shrubs and rocky soil. Unlike the famous Nazca lines, which were made by removing surface stones, the Sajama lines were etched into the earth by the continuous footsteps of indigenous people over thousands of years. They were essentially sacred highways, used by pilgrims to reach various shrines and holy sites, and their sheer scale and mathematical straightness across such difficult terrain remain a testament to an incredible, long-term human effort that functioned without any central map or modern surveying tools. In the quiet, rural fields and ruins of the old Roman Empire, archaeologists have frequently stumbled upon strange objects known as Roman dodecahedrons. These are small, hollow items made of bronze, featuring 12 flat pentagonal faces, each with a circular hole of varying size in the center and small knobs at every corner. What makes them so mysterious is that despite being found in dozens of locations across Europe, there is absolutely no mention of them in any surviving Roman text or artwork. Scholars have guessed they might be anything from candle holders and survey instruments to specialized tools for knitting gloves, or even decorative dice for a lost game. But their true purpose remains a silent secret of the ancient world. The Great Blue Hole of Belize is a stunning natural wonder that looks like a giant dark sapphire set into the shallow turquoise waters of the Lighthouse Reef. This massive underwater sinkhole is over 300 meters across and roughly 125 meters deep. But its true mystery lies in the giant stalactites that hang from its submerged ceilings. Because these icicle-shaped rock formations can only grow in dry caves where water drips through the air, their presence deep underwater proves that this site was once a massive dry cavern system. It was only after the last ice age ended and sea levels rose globally that the cave collapsed and was swallowed by the ocean, leaving us a perfectly preserved time capsule of an era when the world looked very different. Deep within the Austrian Alps, the Eisersenveld stands as the largest ice cave in the entire world, stretching for over 26 miles through the limestone heart of the mountains. This subterranean labyrinth is filled with towering frozen formations, icy curtains, and giant frost sculptures that remain frozen all throughout the year, even during the heat of summer. The cave stays cold because of a chimney effect, where cold winter air is trapped inside the lower chambers and acts like a natural refrigerator. For centuries, locals were afraid to enter the cave, believing it was an entrance to a frigid underworld. And even today, the shifting shapes of the ice continue to create an atmosphere of quiet, ancient mystery. In the ancient Mediterranean world, there was a plant called silphium that was considered more valuable than gold, used by the Romans and Greeks as a seasoning, a medicine, and even a form of birth control. It grew only in a narrow strip of land in modern-day Libya and was so vital to the economy of the city of Cyrene that its image was even stamped onto their coins. However, by the end of the 1st century AD, the plant had completely vanished from the historical record, likely due to overharvesting or changes in the local climate. To this day, botanists are unsure exactly what silphium was, or if a surviving relative still grows in the wild, making it the world's most famous lost botanical treasure. Buried in the earth near the ancient city of Guanghan, the Sangxingdui archaeological site revealed a culture that had been forgotten for nearly 3,000 years. This civilization created stunning bronze masks with massive bulging eyes and oversized ears that look almost otherworldly compared to other ancient Chinese art. These people were master craftsmen who built a massive city with high walls and advanced irrigation, but they left behind no written records to tell us who they were or what their gods represented. Around 1100 BC, the civilization seems to have collapsed overnight, possibly because a massive earthquake diverted the river that supplied their water, leaving these silent bronze giants as the only evidence of their greatness. The bloop was an incredibly loud, ultra-low frequency sound detected by underwater microphones across the Pacific Ocean in 1997. It was several times louder than any known biological sound, leading many people to speculate that a giant, undiscovered sea creature was lurking in the depths of the abyss. However, after years of study, scientists at NOAA concluded that the sound was actually an ice quake, the massive cracking and calving of a giant iceberg as it broke away from the Antarctic ice shelf. The sound was so powerful that it traveled thousands of miles through the water, reminding us of the immense and sometimes noisy power of the natural world. In the mysterious Money Pit of Oak Island, Nova Scotia, treasure hunters have been digging for over 2 centuries in search of a legendary stash of gold or historical artifacts. The pit is a complex engineering marvel, featuring a series of wooden platforms and sophisticated flood tunnels that drown the shaft with seawater whenever someone gets too close to the bottom. Over the years, searchers have found tantalizing clues like bits of gold chain, scraps of ancient parchment, and a stone slab with a coded message, but the primary treasure remains out of reach. Many believe the pit was built by pirates, the Knights Templar, or even the French military, but the secret of who built it and why remains buried deep in the mud. The Winchester Mystery House in San Jose, California, is a sprawling architectural labyrinth with 160 rooms, built by the widow of the man who invented the Winchester rifle. Sarah Winchester was convinced that she was being haunted by the spirits of those killed by her husband's invention, and she believed that as long as construction on her house never stopped, the ghosts would be confused and leave her in peace. This led to the creation of bizarre features like staircases that lead directly into the ceiling, doors that open onto 15-foot drops to the ground, and chimneys that stop just short of the roof. For 38 years, builders worked 24 hours a day, creating a house that is as much a psychological puzzle as it is a physical structure. In a small village in Iraq, researchers found what has become known as the Baghdad Battery, a collection of clay jars containing a copper cylinder and an iron rod. When these jars are filled with an acidic liquid like vinegar or lemon juice, they are capable of producing a small electric charge. While they date back to the Parthian or Sassanid periods, long before the formal discovery of electricity, it is still unclear if they were actually used as batteries for things like electroplating jewelry, or if they were simply containers for sacred scrolls. The idea that ancient people might have understood the basics of electricity is a fascinating mystery that continues to spark debate among historians. High in the mountains of Russia, the Gornaya Shoria megaliths consist of enormous blocks of granite that appear to be stacked with such precision that they look like a giant prehistoric wall. Some of these stones are estimated to weigh over 3,000 tons, which would make them far larger than any stones moved by the builders of the pyramids or Stonehenge. While many people believe they are the remains of an ancient advanced civilization, most geologists argue that they are actually natural formations. They believe the wall was created by tectonic uplift and frost weathering, which caused the granite to crack into straight lines and right angles, mimicking the look of human masonry. Across the landscape of Europe, particularly in Bavaria and Austria, there is a hidden network of narrow underground passages known as Erdstahl, or dwarf tunnels. These tunnels are incredibly cramped, often so small that an adult can only move through them by crawling on their hands and knees, and they frequently feature slip holes that are barely wide enough for a human's shoulders to pass through. They date back to the Stone Age and the Middle Ages, yet they contain no burial remains, no evidence of being lived in, and no storage for food. Their purpose remains a total mystery. Some suggest they were ritual rebirth passages, while others think they were temporary hiding spots during raids, but no one knows for sure. The Baltic Sea anomaly is a strange circular rock formation discovered on the floor of the Baltic Sea by a team of treasure hunters using sonar. The initial images showed a structure that looked remarkably like a crashed saucer-shaped aircraft, complete with straight lines and what appeared to be a long skid mark leading up to it. This sparked global interest in the possibility of a sunken UFO or a secret military base from World War II. However, when divers finally reached the site and took samples, the material turned out to be natural volcanic rock. Most geologists now believe it is a glacial deposit that was pushed along the seabed by moving ice thousands of years ago, though its peculiar shape continues to capture the imagination. The Marfa lights of West Texas are mysterious, glowing orbs that appear in the desert night sky, hovering and dancing near the horizon. These lights have been reported by locals and travelers since at least 1883, appearing in colors like white, yellow, and occasionally red or blue. While some people believe they are spirits or UFOs, scientific research suggests that many of the sightings are actually atmospheric mirages. Because of the unique temperature layers in the desert air, lights from distant car headlights or ranch fires can be reflected and refracted over the horizon, making them appear to be floating in mid-air right in front of the craft. Observer. When a 100-year-old mummy was discovered in the Altai Mountains of Mongolia, the internet was set ablaze by the fact that the mummy appeared to be wearing modern-looking Adidas sneakers. The boots featured 3 distinct red stripes on a white background, leading to wild theories about time travel. However, upon closer inspection by archaeologists, the sneakers were revealed to be traditional felt footwear of the era. The stripes were simply a decorative pattern created by stitching different colored threads together, showing that the people of ancient Mongolia had a sense of style and craftsmanship that coincidentally looks very familiar to Belier, US today. The Solway Firth spaceman is a famous mystery involving a photograph taken in 1964 by a man named Jim Templeton. He was taking pictures of his young daughter on a sunny day in a meadow and when the film was developed, a figure appeared behind her that looked exactly like a person in a white spacesuit. Jim insisted that no one else was present at the time, and the photo was even analyzed by Kodak, who confirmed it hadn't been tampered with. Modern experts, however, believe the spaceman was actually Jim's wife, who had her back to the camera and was wearing a light blue dress that appeared bright white and blurry due to overexposure in the sunlight. The Atacama skeleton is a tiny, 6-inch-long mummified body found in the Chilean desert that looks like a miniature human with an elongated, cone-shaped skull and only 10 pairs of ribs instead of the usual 12. Because of its strange appearance, many people were convinced it was an alien that had crashed on Earth. However, a detailed DNA study conducted in 2018 proved that Atta was actually a human fetus that suffered from several rare genetic mutations affecting bone growth and development. The dry desert air naturally mummified the remains, preserving this tragic biological mystery for years until science could finally explain it. In the Hesdalen Valley of Norway, people have been witnessing strange, glowing lights in the sky for decades, sometimes appearing as bright white or yellow balls that hover for hours or zip across the valley at high speeds. Unlike many other ghost-light mysteries, the Hesdalen lights have been caught on camera and studied by scientists with radar and spectrographs. One leading theory is that the valley's unique geology acts like a giant natural battery. The mountains on one side are rich in copper, while the other side is rich in iron and zinc. When ionized gas is trapped in the valley, it may create a luminous discharge that produces these silent, beautiful light shows. The London hammer is an iron tool with a wooden handle that was found by a couple in Texas in 1936, seemingly encased inside a solid piece of rock that geologists say is over 400 million years old. At first glance, this seems like impossible evidence of modern technology existing in the age of the dinosaurs. However, the mystery is easily explained by the way minerals work. When an object is dropped into a mineral-rich environment, the minerals can quickly harden and crystallize around it, creating a concretia that looks like ancient rock. The hammer is likely a common 19th century miner's tool that simply got swallowed by the Earth's natural chemistry in a relatively short amount of time. In the remote area of China's Qinghai province, there are strange iron-like structures known as the Beigong pipes that appear to run from a cave directly into a nearby saltwater lake. Because they look like a modern plumbing system and are located near a pyramid-shaped mountain, some have suggested they are the remnants of an ancient alien base. However, researchers who analyzed the pipes found that they are actually fossilized tree roots. Millions of years ago, as trees died and were buried, mineral-rich water filled the voids left by the rotting wood, eventually turning into solid cylinders of iron and stone that perfectly mimic the look of man-made pipes. The ICA stones of Peru are a collection of thousands of smooth andesite rocks, carved with intricate scenes that seem to show humans performing heart transplants, using telescopes, and even riding on the backs of dinosaurs. If real, they would rewrite the entire history of the human race. However, most archaeologists believe they are modern forgeries. In the 1960s, a local farmer admitted to carving the stones himself, using a modern drill, and then aging them in a fire to sell to tourists. While the carvings are beautiful, they are generally considered to be a clever hoax rather than a record of an ancient high-tech civilization. The story of the Dropa stones tells of 716 stone discs found in a cave in the Himalayas, each one featuring a tiny spiral of hieroglyphs that supposedly tells the story of an alien being spacecraft that crashed in the mountains 12,000 years ago. According to the legend, the Dropa people were the descendants of these aliens. While the story is incredibly popular in books about ancient mysteries, there is no physical evidence that the stones ever existed. No museum has them, no photographs of the original find have been verified, and the professor who supposedly translated them cannot be found in any university records, making this a fascinating urban chi. Legend rather than a scientific mystery. The disappearance of the Inuit village at Lake Anjikuni is a chilling tale from 1930 about a fur trapper who arrived at a settlement to find it completely empty. The story claims that kayaks were still at the shore, food was still cooking over cold fires, and even the village dogs had died of hunger, yet not a single person was to be found. It's a classic ghost story, but the Royal Canadian Mounted Police have investigated the claim and found it to be a complete fabrication. There were no records of such a large village in that area at the time, and the story likely grew out of a sensationalized magazine article that became an enduring myth of the North. The Bermuda Triangle is a famous stretch of the Atlantic Ocean between Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, where ships and planes are said to vanish without a trace under mysterious circumstances. While legends speak of magnetic vortexes, giant sea monsters, or even the lost city of Atlantis pulling vessels down, the truth is a bit more grounded. The Worldwide Fund for Nature conducted a study of the world's most dangerous shipping lanes and found that the Bermuda Triangle isn't even in the top 10. It is a very high traffic area with unpredictable tropical weather, and when you look at the statistics, the number of disappearances is no higher than in any other well-traveled part of the ocean. The Great Pyramid of Giza is one of the most perfectly engineered structures in history, but we often forget that it used to look very different. When it was first completed, it was covered in a layer of casing stones, highly polished white limestone that would have reflected the sun's light so brightly that the pyramid would have glowed like a star. Over the centuries, these beautiful outer stones were stripped away by later rulers and used as building material for mosques and palaces in nearby Cairo. Today, only a few of these stones remain at the very base, giving us a small hint of the pyramid's original blindingly white splendor. The Great Sphinx of Egypt is one of the world's most iconic monuments, but its age is a subject of intense debate among researchers. While traditional Egyptologists dated to the reign of Pharaoh Khafre around 2500 BC, some geologists have pointed to deep vertical grooves on the Sphinx's body that they believe were caused by thousands of years of heavy rainfall. Since Egypt has been a desert for the last 5,000 years, this would mean the Sphinx was carved much earlier, perhaps as far back as 10,000 BC, when the region was a lush green landscape. This water erosion theory remains controversial, but offers a fascinating glimpse into a much older version of history. The Terracotta Army in China is a massive collection of over 8,000 life-sized clay soldiers, horses, and chariots that were buried to protect the first emperor of China in the afterlife. What makes this discovery so incredible is that every single soldier has a unique face, hairstyle, and uniform, suggesting they were modeled after real people in the emperor's army. The soldiers were originally painted in vibrant colors like red, blue, and green, but the pigments were so delicate that they began to flake and disappear within seconds of being exposed to the modern air. Today, scientists are working on new ways to excavate the remaining soldiers while keeping their original colors intact. The tomb of the first Chinese emperor, Qin Shi Huang, is located near the Terracotta Army, but has never been opened by archaeologists. According to ancient writings, the tomb is a miniature replica of the emperor's kingdom, complete with palaces, towers, and rivers made of flowing liquid mercury that move mechanically. Scientific tests of the soil around the burial mound have actually revealed extremely high levels of mercury, suggesting the ancient accounts might be true. However, because of the danger of the mercury and the fear of damaging the priceless artifacts inside, the world's most mysterious tomb remains sealed, its secrets protected by a toxic silver moat. On the remote hills of Easter Island, the famous Moai statues were once thought to be just giant heads sitting in the grass. However, when archaeologists began to excavate around them, they discovered that many of the statues have full, intricately carved bodies buried deep beneath the soil. Over hundreds of years, sediment and dust from the island's volcanic landscape slowly built up around the statues, hiding their torsos from view. These hidden bodies often feature carvings on their backs that represent the cultural history of the island's people, showing that there was much more to these silent guardians than met the eye. The largest Moai statue ever successfully erected on Easter Island is a giant known as Paro. He stands almost 10 meters tall and weighs a staggering 82 tons, featuring a separate pukao, or top-knot stone, made of red volcanic rock balanced on his head. Moving such a massive statue from the quarry to its final resting place on the coast was a feat of incredible teamwork and engineering, especially considering the islanders had no metal tools or large animals to help them. The effort required to move Paro is a testament to the deep spiritual commitment of the ancient Rapa Nui people to their ancestors. The Olmec colossal heads of ancient Mexico are massive stone sculptures, some weighing up to 50 tons, that depict powerful human faces with distinct features like flat noses and thick lips. These heads were carved from single boulders of basalt that were transported from the Tuxtla Mountains to the Olmec heartland, a distance of over 90 miles. Because the Olmecs had no wheels or pack animals, historians believe they must have moved these giant stones using a combination of wooden rollers over land and massive rafts on the rivers, a journey that would have taken months of coordinated labor for a single head. Each of the Olmec colossal heads features a unique helmet or headdress, leading researchers to believe that they are not just generic statues, but actual portraits of individual Olmec rulers. By carving these massive faces, the Olmec people were essentially immortalizing their leaders in stone, ensuring that their power and presence would be felt for generations. The fact that many of the heads were found buried or intentionally moved suggests they played a key role in the political and religious life of the first great civilization of Mesoamerica. The city of Machu Picchu sits high in the Andes Mountains of Peru, and while it is often called the lost city of the Incas, it was never truly lost to the indigenous people who lived in the valley below. They always knew it was there, and some even used the ancient terraces to grow crops. It only became a mystery to the rest of the world because the Spanish conquistadors never found it, leaving it perfectly preserved for centuries. It wasn't until 1911 that an American explorer was led to the site by a local boy, revealing one of the most beautiful and mysterious archaeological sites on the planet to the global bee. Community. The stonework at Machu Picchu is world famous for its ashlar technique, where stones are cut to fit together so perfectly that no mortar is needed to hold them in place. The joints are so tight that even a thin knife blade cannot be inserted between the blocks. This was a crucial engineering choice by the Incas, as the site is located in a high earthquake zone. Because the stones are not glued together, they can dance or jiggle during a tremor and then settle back into their original positions without the walls collapsing, making the city both a beautiful and incredibly resilient mystery of ancient construction. Lonsol Meadows is a quiet, grassy site on the northern tip of Newfoundland that holds the title of being the only confirmed Norse settlement in North America outside of Greenland. For a long time, the stories of Vikings sailing to a land called Vinland were thought to be just legends or myths. However, the discovery of this site in 1960, complete with sod-walled buildings, a blacksmith shop, and even a bronze cloak pin, proved that the Norse had actually crossed the Atlantic 500. years before Columbus. This site remains a vital piece of the puzzle in understanding the early exploration of the Americas and the incredible seafaring skills of the Vikings. The Sutton Hoo ship burial in England is one of the most spectacular archaeological finds ever made, discovered just before the start of World War II. It consisted of a 90-foot-long wooden ship that had been buried in the earth as a final resting place for a powerful Anglo-Saxon leader. Inside, researchers found a treasure trove of gold jewelry, silver dishes, and a world-famous iron helmet decorated with silver and garnets. What makes it a mystery is that despite the wealth and the effort put into the burial, no body was ever found inside the ship. Scientists believe the soil was so acidic that the bones completely dissolved over time, leaving only the ghost of a king surrounded by his treasures. The Vinland map was a sensation when it was first revealed in the 1960 AS, appearing to be a 15th century map that showed the coastline of North America long before any other European map. It was presented as proof that the Vikings' knowledge of the New World had been shared with other explorers. However, after decades of scientific testing, it was proven to be a 20th century forgery. The key clue was the ink, which contained a chemical called anatase, form of titanium dioxide, that was not used in ink until the 1920s. This map serves as a reminder that even the most convincing mysteries must be carefully tested by science. In the Mayan city of Palenque, archaeologists discovered a hidden burial chamber belonging to a woman they called the Red Queen. Her body was found inside a massive limestone sarcophagus, completely covered in a brilliant blood-red powder made of cinnabar, which is a mineral form of mercury. She was buried with a magnificent jade mask and hundreds of pieces of jewelry, indicating she was a person of immense importance. While her exact identity remains a mystery, DNA testing has shown she was not a direct relative of the great King Pakal, leading researchers to believe she was likely his wife, Queen Sakbu Ajor. The Library of Alexandria was the greatest center of knowledge in the ancient world, housing hundreds of thousands of papyrus scrolls containing the wisdom of Greece, Egypt, and beyond. There is a common story that the library was destroyed in a single catastrophic fire, but historians now believe its loss was much more gradual. Over several centuries, the library suffered from a lack of funding, civil wars, and multiple smaller fires during various conquests of the city. As the scrolls rotted away or were stolen, the collective knowledge of the ancient world slowly faded, leaving us to wonder how many scientific and historical secrets were lost to time. The Mayan calendar is a complex and beautiful system of tracking time, but it became the center of a global mystery in 2012, when many people believed it predicted the end of the world. In reality, the Maya did not see the end of their long count cycle as an apocalypse. To them, it was more like the odometer of a car rolling over, or the start of a new year. It was a time for celebration, ceremonies, and looking forward to the next cycle of history. The mystery of the 2012 end-of-the-world prediction was actually a modern misunderstanding of a very sophisticated ancient way of seeing time. For decades, the crystal skulls were some of the most famous and mysterious artifacts in the world, claimed to be ancient Aztec or Mayan objects with magical healing powers and high-tech origins. However, when these skulls were finally examined under powerful microscopes by scientists at the British Museum and the Smithsonian, the truth was revealed. The skulls showed clear marks from high-speed rotary carving tools that were not invented until the 19th century. Most of the skulls were likely crafted in Germany or France in the late 1800 to satisfy a growing market for exotic and mysterious antiquities from the Americas. The Newgrange Passage tomb in Ireland is a massive circular mound of stone and earth that is even older than the pyramids of Egypt. Its most mysterious feature is a small opening above the entrance called a roof box. For most of the year, the inner chamber is in total darkness, but on the morning of the winter solstice, the rising sun aligns perfectly with this opening. A single beam of golden light travels 60 feet down the narrow passage and perfectly illuminates the center of the tomb. This shows that the ancient people of Ireland had a deep and precise understanding of astronomy and the movements of the sun over 5,000 years ago. Skara Bree is a remarkably well-preserved Neolithic village on the coast of Scotland that was hidden for thousands of years until a violent storm in 1850 stripped away the sand dunes, covering it. The village consists of 8 stone houses that are linked by covered walkways, creating a cozy, protected community against the harsh Atlantic weather. Inside the houses, the residents even built stone furniture, including beds, cupboards, and dressers. Because it was buried so quickly by sand, it is often called the Pompeii of Scotland, providing a rare and intimate look at the everyday lives of people who lived 5,000 years ago. The Palace of Knossos on the island of Crete was the heart of the Minoan civilization and is the source of the famous legend of the labyrinth and the Minotaur. What is truly mysterious about this 500-year-old palace is how advanced its engineering was. It featured a complex system of clay pipes that provided the residents with running water and even flushing toilets, a level of hygiene that would not be common again for thousands of years. The palace's sprawling, confusing layout of over 1,000 interlocking rooms likely gave rise to the stories of a maze-like labyrinth where a monster was hidden at the center. The Etruscan civilization was a powerful and sophisticated culture that lived in central Italy before the rise of Rome. Yet much of their history remains a mystery because their language has never been fully translated. They used an alphabet similar to Greek, but the words they formed are unique and do not seem to be related to any other known language family. Most of what we know about the Etruscans comes from their cities of the dead, massive necropolises filled with beautifully painted tombs and luxury goods that show they were a wealthy, artistic, and deeply religious people who greatly influenced the early development of Rome. The Hittite Empire was once one of the most powerful forces in the ancient Middle East, ruling over much of modern-day Turkey and even challenging the mighty Egyptian pharaohs in battle. Yet, after their empire collapsed around 1200 BC, they were so completely forgotten by history that for thousands of years, people thought they were just a myth. It wasn't until the late 19th century that archaeologists discovered their capital city, Hattusa, and realized that a great superpower had been hiding in plain sight. Their rediscovery is a reminder that even the largest and most successful empires can vanish and become a mystery if their stories are not passed down. The capital city of the Hittites, Hattusa, was a massive fortress built into the rugged hills of central Turkey, protected by miles of thick stone walls. One of the city's most impressive features is the Lion Gate, where 2 enormous lions were carved directly into the stone pillars to guard the entrance and ward off evil spirits. The city also featured secret tunnels, massive underground grain silos, and a sprawling complex of temples. The way the Hittites integrated their massive stone architecture into the natural landscape shows they were master builders who understood both defense and aesthetics on a grand scale. One of the greatest mysteries of the Bronze Age is the identity of the Sea Peoples, a mysterious confederation of naval raiders who suddenly appeared in the Mediterranean and began attacking the great empires of the time. They are credited with contributing to the collapse of the Hittites, the Mycenaeans, and the weakening of ancient Egypt. Who they were and where they came from remains a subject of intense debate. Some think they were displaced people from Europe, while others believe they were early Greeks or Philistines. They appeared, changed the course of history, and then vanished. leaving only a few scattered records of their devastating path. The Iron Pillar of Delhi is a 7-meter-tall column that has stood in the open air for over 600 years without rusting, which is a near impossible feat for an object made of iron. This resistance to corrosion is not due to magic, but to the incredible skill of ancient Indian blacksmiths. They created a specific type of iron with a very high phosphorus content, which caused a protective, passive film of iron hydrogen phosphate to form on the surface of the pillar. This thin layer acts like a natural shield, preventing the underlying metal from reacting with the humid air and preserving this ancient mystery for centuries. The Lascaux caves in France contain some of the most beautiful and mysterious prehistoric art in the world, featuring nearly 600 paintings of horses, deer, and massive bulls that were created nearly 17,000 years ago. The artists used natural pigments like ochre and charcoal, often using the natural curves of the cave walls to give the animals a three-dimensional look. Today, the original caves are strictly closed to the public because the breath of visitors was causing mold to grow and damage the paintings. Instead, people must visit a perfect replica nearby, while the original ancient masterpieces remain in the quiet, protected darkness of the earth. Deep within the Judean desert, the story of the Dead Sea Scrolls began with a simple, lucky moment when a young Bedouin shepherd boy was looking for a lost goat. He tossed a stone into a dark, narrow cave opening and heard the unexpected sound of pottery shattering, which led him inside to find ancient clay jars filled with bundles of parchment. These scrolls turned out to be one of the most important archaeological finds in history, containing some of the oldest known copies of the Hebrew Bible and providing a window into a world from over 2,000 years ago that had been hidden in the dry, salty air of the desert. High on a limestone cliff in Iran, the Behistun inscription stands as a massive monument that served as the Rosetta Stone for the mysterious wedge-shaped writing known as cuneiform. King Darius the Great ordered his life story and his victories to be carved into the rock face over 300 feet above the ground so that everyone passing by could see his power. Because the same story was written in 3 different ancient languages, Old Persian, Elamite, and Babylonian scholars in the 1800 were finally able to compare them and unlock the ability to read the lost records of the entire Mesopotamian world. The city of Mohenjo-Daro, located in what is now Pakistan, was a marvel of ancient urban planning that existed over 500 years ago, featuring a grid-like street system that looks surprisingly modern. Unlike many other ancient cities that grew randomly, Mohenjo-Daro was built with a clear vision, including standardized bricks and a sophisticated drainage system that carried waste away from the homes. At the heart of the city sat the Great Bath, a massive, watertight pool lined with natural tar to prevent leaks, which historians believe was used by the citizens for spiritual washing and ritual purification before important events. On a high plateau in the Andes, the Tiwanaku ruins feature the Gate of the Sun, an incredible monument carved from a single massive block of volcanic stone that weighs many tons. This gateway is famous for its intricate carvings of a mysterious figure holding 2 staves, surrounded by smaller winged beings that seem to represent a complex celestial calendar. The gate was part of a great spiritual center that predated the Incas by centuries, and the way the stone was shaped with such sharp, clean angles suggests the builders possessed a deep knowledge of geometry and masonry that still challenges our understanding of ancient tools. Near the Tiwanaku site lies Puma Punku, a place that contains stem blocks so perfectly shaped and smooth that they almost look like they were cut by modern high-powered lasers. These blocks are made of red sandstone and andesite, some of the hardest rocks on Earth, yet they feature complex T-shaped grooves and internal right angles that would be difficult to achieve even with today's steel T. Equipment. Because these stones were designed to interlock like a giant set of building blocks, some people have wondered if the ancient builders used lost technology, but it remains a silent testament to the incredible patience and skill of the human hand. The ancient city of Teotihuacan in Mexico was already a ghost town of massive, crumbling pyramids when the Aztecs discovered it hundreds of years after it had been abandoned. The Aztecs were so moved by the scale and beauty of the ruins that they believed it was the place where the gods themselves had gathered to create the universe. They gave the city its name, which translates to the place where the gods were created. And they adopted many of its mysteries into their own religion, even though they never knew the names of the original people who built the towering Pyramid of the Sun. Stretching for over a mile through the heart of Teotihuacan is a wide, grand road known as the Avenue of the Dead, which is lined with the remains of dozens of smaller temples and grand residential palaces. The Aztecs gave it this name because they mistakenly believed the platforms along the road were tombs for ancient kings, but we now know they were actually elevated stages for public ceremonies and religious rituals. Walking down this path today, you can still feel the immense power of a city that once housed over 100,000 people and served as the cultural heartbeat of ancient Mexico. The Great Pyramid of Cholula in Mexico holds the title of the largest pyramid ever built in the world by total volume, even though many people have never heard of it because it is mostly hidden under a hill. Built in stages over 1,000 years, it was a massive sacred mountain made of millions of mud bricks, covering an area much larger than the Great Pyramid of Giza. Today, the pyramid is largely overgrown with grass and trees, and a Spanish colonial church sits right on the very top, creating a strange and beautiful mystery where two different worlds and religions, physically layered one on top of the other. In the remote waters of Micronesia, the city of Nan Madol is a hauntingly beautiful collection of nearly 100 artificial islands, built directly on top of a coral reef. The buildings are made from massive, naturally shaped basalt columns that look like giant logs made of stone, stacked together to form thick walls and tall platforms. Because there are no quarries on the reef itself, the ancient builders had to transport thousands of these heavy stones across the water, likely using rafts. The city served as a sacred residence for royalty and was designed so that the tide would flow through the streets like an oceanic Venice. The ruins of Baalbek in Lebanon are home to some of the heaviest building stones ever handled by human beings, specifically a group of 3 massive blocks known as the Trilithon. These stones are part of the foundation of a great temple and are estimated to weigh about 800 tons each, which is equivalent to the weight of several hundred elephants. It is a profound mystery how the builders were able to move these incredible weights from a nearby quarry and lift them into place with such precision that they fit together perfectly, especially without the help of the heavy hydraulic cranes we use today. Cahokia Mounds in Illinois was once the site of the largest and most influential urban center in North America, north of Mexico, reaching its peak around 1,000 years ago. At its height, this bustling city was home to up to 20,000 people who built a complex society based on trade, agriculture, and the movements of the stars. The city featured grand plazas and over 100 earthen mounds, serving as the center of a vast network that traded goods from the Great Lakes all the way to the Gulf of Mexico, proving that ancient North America was home to thriving, sophisticated civilizations. The centerpiece of Cahokia is Monk's Mound, a massive structure made entirely of earth that rises 100 feet into the sky, making it the largest man-made earthen mound in North America. It took millions of baskets of soil carried by hand to create this towering platform where the city's supreme leader likely lived in a grand wooden palace. From the top of Monk's Mound, the ruler could look out over the entire city and the surrounding farmland, a physical symbol of the incredible organized labor and social structure that allowed such a massive project to be completed. Deep within the Amazon rainforest, the Beni cultural landscape reveals that the jungle was not always a wild, untouched wilderness, but was once home to large, organized societies. Researchers have found thousands of man-made mounds, long straight canals, and raised fields that were used to manage water and grow food on a massive scale. These structures prove that the people of the Amazon were expert engineers who transformed the landscape to support tens of thousands of people, challenging the old mystery of how such complex cultures could thrive in the heart of the tropical forest long before Europeans arrived. The Nazca lines are famous for their animal geoglyphs, including a giant hummingbird, a delicate spider, and a monkey with a spiraling tail, all etched into the desert floor. These figures are so large that their true shapes were only rediscovered when airplanes began flying over the region in the early 20th century. While we know how they were made, the mystery of why they were made remains. Some think they were paths to be walked during religious dances, while others believe they were large-scale offerings to the gods of rain and fertility, who looked down from the clouds. On a steep, sandy hillside in Peru, a massive geoglyph known as the Paracas Candelabra stretches over 600 feet from top to bottom, looking like a giant three-pronged fork or a sacred tree. It was carved into the slope by the ancient Paracas people and is visible from many miles out at sea, leading some to believe it served as a giant lighthouse or a navigational marker for sailors. Because the hillside is made of soft sand, it is a miracle of nature and history that the figure hasn't been erased by the wind over the last 2,000 years, remaining a silent guardian of the coast. In the California desert near the town of Blythe, there are a group of giant figures known as intaglios that depict humans, animals, and coiled snakes carved into the hard ground. These figures were made by the ancestors of local tribes who scraped away the dark surface rocks to reveal the lighter soil underneath, creating art that is hundreds of feet long. Like the Nazca limes, these figures are best seen from above, and they are believed to represent powerful spirits or characters from the creation stories of the indigenous people who have called this desert home for countless generations. The Uffington White Horse is a striking 3,000-year-old figure of a horse carved into a green hillside in England, made by digging deep trenches and filling them with crushed white chalk. The horse has a very abstract, flowing shape that looks remarkably modern, even though it was created during the Bronze Age. Because grass would naturally grow over the chalk and hide the figure within a few years, local communities have gathered for centuries to scour the horse, pulling up weeds and adding fresh chalk. This ongoing tradition is a beautiful mystery of human connection, keeping a piece of ancient art alive for 3 millennia. Another famous English hill figure is the Cerne Abbas giant, which depicts a massive club-wielding man carved into the chalk of a steep slope in Dorset. For a long time, people thought he might be an ancient Celtic god or a representation of the hero Hercules, but recent scientific tests of the soil suggest he may actually date back to the late Saxon bull Ber period, or even the 17th century. Regardless of his true age, the giant has become a beloved part of the local landscape and a focus for many folk legends, serving as a bold and mysterious reminder of the people who shaped the land before us. The Long Man of Wilmington is a mysterious figure in East Sussex, England, showing a tall, thin man holding 2 long staves or poles, as if he is opening a door to another world. Unlike the other chalk figures, his origin is even more debated, with some researchers suggesting he is a modern creation and others believing he is a much older religious symbol. Because he is carved with specific proportions that make him look normal when viewed from the valley below, it shows that the creators had a sophisticated understanding of perspective and how to use the natural landscape, a giant canvas. In the French region of Brittany, the Karnak stones form one of the most incredible sights in the world, with more than 3 standing stones arranged in long, straight rows that stretch for miles across the countryside. These alignments were created by Neolithic people over 5,000 years ago. And while some of the stones are small, others are massive pillars that tower over the landscape. We still do not know exactly what these rows were for. Perhaps they tracked the movement of the stars or served as a sacred boundary. But the sheer scale of the work shows a society that was deeply organized and dedicated to a grand, mysterious vision. The Callanish stones on a remote island in Scotland are arranged in a unique cross shape, with a central circle of tall, jagged stones that seem to reach up toward the sky. Standing on a wind-swept ridge, the stones were likely used as a sophisticated astronomical observatory to track the moon and the sun over 5,000 years ago. Local legends call them the giants of the night, and when the moon hangs low over the horizon, it aligns perfectly with the stones in a way that feels intentional and magical, making this one of the most atmospheric and peaceful mysteries of the ancient world. The Avebury stone circle in England is so massive that it is actually the largest megalithic circle in the world, stretching nearly 1/3 of a mile across. It is so big that an entire village, complete with a pub and a church, was eventually built right inside the circle's boundaries. Originally, it consisted of about 100 enormous standing stones surrounded by a deep ditch and a high bank of earth. While Stonehenge is more famous, Avebury is much older and offers a more intimate mystery, as you can walk right up to the giant stones and feel the history of the people who moved them into place by hand. In Germany, the Goseck Circle is a quiet, circular monument made of wooden posts and earthen ditches that is considered one of the oldest solar observatories in the world. It was designed with specific gates that align perfectly with the sunrise and sunset on the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year. This shows that even 7,000 years ago, early farming communities were carefully watching the sky to understand the changing seasons. Using this sacred space as a giant wooden clock to know when to plant their crops and when to celebrate the return of the sun. The peninsula of Korea is home to an incredible concentration of ancient stone burial chambers known as dolmens, which consist of 2 or more upright stones supporting a massive flat capstone on top. In fact, about 40% of all the dolmens in the entire world are found in Korea, numbering in the tens of thousands. These structures were built during the Bronze Age as tombs for powerful leaders. And the effort required to lift a 70-ton stone lid onto the upright pillars shows that these ancient people had developed complex engineering techniques and a strong social order centered around honoring their ancestors. On the island of Sardinia, there are thousands of mysterious stone towers called nuraghi that were built over 3,000 years ago, using a dry stone technique, meaning no mortar was used to hold them together. These towers have a distinctive beehive shape and were often the center of large villages, featuring thick walls and internal spiral staircases that led to upper floors. While some think they were fortresses for defense, others believe they were the homes of local chieftains or even sacred temples. They remain a unique symbol of a lost Mediterranean culture that was expert in building massive, enduring structures from the island's rocky soil. The island of Minorca is home to unique stone monuments called talaots, which are large, Bronze Age towers that look like small stone hills. Along with these towers, the island features taulas, which are T-shaped monuments consisting of one massive vertical stone with a flat stone balanced on top, resembling a giant table. The word taula actually means table in the local language, and these structures were often the center of religious sanctuaries. The mystery of how the ancient people balanced such heavy capstones so perfectly and what rituals were performed in their shadow continues to fascinate visitors and archaeologists alike. In the highlands of Ethiopia, the landscape is dotted with mysterious standing stones known as menhirs, some of which are carved with simplified human faces, swords, or phallic shapes. The most famous collection is at the Tia archaeological site, where 36 of these monoliths stand in a long row, decorated with symbols that we still cannot fully decode. These stones are believed to mark the graves of ancient warriors or important community members, serving as a permanent and artistic memory of a culture that thrived long ago in the Horn of Africa. The Bada Valley on the island of Sulawesi in Indonesia is home to dozens of strange megalithic statues that sit quietly in the grass, some looking like humans with large heads and round eyes, and others like giant pa. Stone jars. These statues are carved from solid blocks of stone that are not found in the immediate area, meaning they had to be moved a great distance. No one knows who carved them or how old they really are, but their simplified, peaceful expressions give the valley a sense of ancient mystery, as if the stones themselves are keeping a secret from a forgotten age. Across the vast grasslands of Mongolia and Siberia, archaeologists have found ancient monoliths known as deer stones, which are named for the beautiful carvings of flying deer that wrap around their surfaces. These stones often feature other animals like elk and tigers, as well as weapons and belts, leading researchers to believe they represent the spirits of ancient warriors or shamans. The way the deer are carved with long, flowing antlers that seem to turn into clouds suggests a deep spiritual connection to nature and the afterlife, serving as silent monuments to the nomadic cultures of the Bronze Prav. Age. The massive jars on the Plain of Jars in Laos were carved from several different types of stone, including sandstone, granite, and even limestone. This variety shows that the builders were willing to travel to different quarries to find the right material for their jars, some of which are very smooth and others that are quite rough. A few of the jars even feature small, carved human or animal figures on the outside, which is a rare and beautiful detail that hints at the artistic side of the people who created these heavy, mysterious vessels thousands of years ago. The islands of Malta and Gozo are home to some of the oldest freestanding stone structures on Earth, known as the Maltese temples. Sites like G with Dotobovkantigia feature massive stone walls and complex curved rooms that were built over 500 years ago, long before the pyramids of Egypt. The temples are decorated with intricate stone carvings of spirals and animals, and their design suggests they were used for elaborate religious ceremonies. These temples are a mystery because they represent a sudden explosion of advanced architecture on a small group of islands, created by a people who seemed to disappear as mysteriously as they arrived. Hidden beneath the streets of a town in Malta is the Hypogeum of Haile Safiani, a massive underground complex of chambers and passages that was carved directly out of the solid limestone bedrock. It consists of 3 different levels that reach deep into the earth, featuring rooms that were shaped to look like the above-ground temples, complete with doorways and pillars carved into the rock. This site served as both a sacred temple and a burial place for thousands of people, and its unique oracle room was designed with acoustics that make a low voice echo powerfully throughout the entire complex, creating a hauntingly beautiful mystery. The legend of the labyrinth at the Palace of Knossos may have its roots in the actual design of the building, which featured over 300 rooms connected by a confusing maze of winding corridors, staircases, and light wells. For an outsider visiting the palace, it would have been very easy to get lost in the dark, narrow passages, which likely led to the stories of a monster lurking in a hidden maze. This sprawling layout was not just for mystery, but was a practical way for the Minoans to build a massive, multi-story royal centre on a hillside, creating one of the most complex buildings of the ancient world. The Phaistos disc is a unique piece of history because its symbols were not carved into the clay, but were stamped using a set of pre-made seals while the clay was still wet. This is a very advanced way of writing, similar to the way we use rubber stamps today, or how early printing presses worked. After the symbols were carefully pressed in a spiral pattern, the disc was fired in a kiln to make it hard and permanent. Because this is the only object ever found that uses this stamping technique and these specific symbols, it remains a mystery that science has yet to solve. Within the mysterious pages of the Voynich manuscript, there is a fascinating section that shows drawings of nymphs, or small women bathing in a strange system of green pools and interlocking tubes. Some researchers believe these images are not literal, but are a coded way of explaining how the human body works, with the tubes representing veins or organs. Others think it might be a guide to medieval medicine or a secret book of alchemy. These strange and playful illustrations add another layer of mystery to a book that continues to defy every attempt to understand its true meaning. The Antikythera mechanism was found at the bottom of the sea inside a Roman shipwreck that was likely carrying a vast treasure of Greek art and luxury goods back to Rome. Along with the world's first computer, divers found hundreds of bronze and marble statues, including the Antikythera youth, a beautiful bronze statue of a young man that is now one of the treasures of the National Archaeological Museum. The fact that such a high-tech device was found among pieces of art suggests that in the ancient world, scientific instruments were valued as highly as the finest sculptures, both representing the peak of human creativity. Achievement. The Rosetta Stone was the ultimate K that allowed historians to finally understand the mystery of Egyptian hieroglyphs after they had been forgotten for 500 years. It contained a royal decree written in 3 different scripts: the formal hieroglyphs used by priests, a simpler demotic script used for everyday business, and ancient Greek, which scholars already knew how to read. By comparing the Greek names to the Egyptian symbols, researchers were able to slowly decode the entire language, turning the silent walls of Egypt's temples and tombs into a vibrant record of history that we can still read today. The Behistun inscription in Iran was a massive undertaking, carved into a cliff 100 meters above the ground so that it could be seen from a great distance but would be very difficult for anyone to vandalize. It was written in 3 different languages: Old Persian, Elamite, and Babylonian, which were the main languages of the Persian Empire at the time. This multi-language approach was a brilliant political move by King Darius, ensuring that people from all over his vast empire could understand his message of power. And it accidentally provided the perfect tool for modern linguists to decode the lost art of cuneiform writing. The Indus script was used by a civilization that stretched across a massive area of land, including parts of modern-day India, Pakistan, and Iran. Because these people were active traders, their unique script has been found on seals and pottery in faraway places like Mesopotamia, showing that they were part of a global trade network thousands of years ago. Today, scientists are using powerful computers and artificial intelligence to look for patterns in the way the symbols are arranged, hoping that technology can finally solve the mystery of what these ancient people were trying to communicate. The Rongorongo tablets of Easter Island are a precious and rare piece of history, with only about 24 authentic examples surviving in museums around the world today. Most of these tablets were carved from the wood of the Toromiro tree, a beautiful flowering tree that once grew all over the island but is now extinct in the wild. The fact that the islanders used this specific wood to record their stories shows how much they valued their language. Because the tree and the knowledge of the script are both gone, the tablets serve as a beautiful but tragic mystery of a culture's lost voice. The Kensington runestone is a large slab of rock found in Minnesota that features a long message carved in Viking runes, telling the story of a group of 30 travelers who were on an exploration journey far from home in the year 1362. If the stone is real, it would mean the Vikings traveled thousands of miles into the heart of North America, reaching the Midwest long before other Europeans. While most scientists believe it was a clever 19th century creation, the stone remains a mystery that many people in the region still defend, representing the enduring human desire to find deep and dependee, surprising roots in the land. The Vinland map was once the most famous map in the world, appearing to show a large island labeled Vinland located to the west of Greenland, which would have been proof of the Vikings' discovery of America. It was studied for decades by the world's top experts, but in 2021, a final scientific analysis confirmed it was a forgery. Researchers found that the ink contained a modern pigment that didn't exist until the 1920 ES, and the parchment itself was actually from the 15th century but had been altered. This mystery shows how easily we can be fooled when we want to believe in a beautiful or exciting story about our past. The mystery of the crystal skulls was fueled by modern legends that claimed there were 13 of these perfect skulls hidden around the world, and that if they were all brought together in one place, they would reveal a great secret or prevent a global disaster. These stories were mostly created by writers in the mid-20th century to add a sense of magic and adventure to the artifacts. While we now know the skulls were made in modern times using industrial tools, the legends themselves have become a part of our culture, showing how we love to create new mysteries out of the objects we find. The Mitchell Hedges skull is the most famous of all the crystal skulls, known for its incredible detail and the fact that its jaw is a separate, movable piece. The woman who owned it claims she found it in a hidden room inside a Mayan ruin in Belize when she was a young girl. For years, people believed it was an ancient masterpiece that defied explanation. But modern research has shown it was actually bought at an auction in London in 1943. This story is a perfect example of how a personal tale can turn a modern object into an ancient mystery that captures the world's imagination for decades. According to ancient legends, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon were built by King Nebuchadnezzar II as a beautiful gift for his wife, Queen Amytis. She had come from a land of green mountains and misty valleys, and she found the flat, dusty plains of Babylon to be very lonely and grey. To make her feel at home, the king ordered the construction of a massive, artificial mountain of stone terraces filled with exotic plants and tall trees. Whether the gardens were real or just a beautiful story about love, they represent the human desire to create beauty and comfort, even in the most difficult environments. The ancient stories tell us that the Hanging Gardens of Babylon were a marvel of early engineering, specifically because of how they stayed green in the middle of a hot, dry desert. To keep the thousands of trees and flowers alive on the high stone terraces, the builders supposedly created a sophisticated irrigation system that used a series of pumps to lift water from the nearby Euphrates River. Some historians suggest this system might have even included an early version of the Archimedes screw-a-giant wooden spiral used to move water uphill, which would be an incredible mystery, since the gardens were reportedly built hundreds of years before Archimedes was even born. The Plain of Jars in Laos is such a unique and important piece of human history that it has been officially named a UNESCO World Heritage Site to ensure its protection for future generations. This recognition helps scientists from all over the world come together to study the massive stone vessels and the people who carved them. However, working at the site remains a dangerous mystery because the area is still heavily contaminated with unexploded ordnance, such as old landmines and bombs from the Vietnam War, which means many of the jar fields are still off-limits and haven't been fully explored. For over a century, the Hephaestos disk has been the ultimate puzzle for linguists, sparking countless attempts to decipher its stamped symbols. People have claimed it is anything from a sacred hymn or a legal document to an ancient board game or even a secret calendar. Because the script is so unique and doesn't match any other known writing in the Mediterranean, no single translation has ever been widely accepted by the scientific community, leaving the disk as a beautiful, silent witness to a lost way of communicating. Some skeptics have looked at the Hephaestos disk and wondered if it might be a clever forgery, perhaps created by the very person who discovered it in 1908 to gain fame. They point to its perfect condition and the fact that no other similar objects have ever been found as reasons to be suspicious. However, most professional archaeologists who have studied the clay and the firing techniques consider it to be an authentic artifact from the Minoan era, making its status as a one-of-a-kind object, one of the most intriguing mysteries in archaeology. The Antikythera mechanism was so advanced and looked so out of place when it was first pulled from the sea that many early researchers simply couldn't believe it was ancient. They theorized that it must have been a clock or a navigation tool from a much later period, perhaps the 17th or 18th century, that had accidentally fallen into the Roman shipwreck hundreds of years later. It wasn't until modern scientists used powerful X-ray imaging to look inside the corroded bronze that they saw the complex Greek inscriptions and gear structures, proving beyond any doubt that it was indeed over 2000 years old. The Voynich manuscript is not just filled with strange plants. It also contains a fascinating section dedicated to astronomy and the movements of the sky. This part of the book features large circular diagrams showing the sun, the moon, and clusters of stars, all painted in soft colors. These drawings suggest that the author was trying to map out the relationship between the heavens and the earth, perhaps for the purpose of astrology, or to keep track of the seasons, adding a celestial layer of mystery to this already baffling book. One of the most recognizable diagrams in the Voynich manuscript's astronomy section is a large wheel that clearly shows the 12 signs of the zodiac, such as Pisces and Sagittarius. Beside each sign are tiny drawings of women holding stars, which has led researchers to believe the book might have been a guide for health by the stars, a popular idea in the Middle Ages. Even though we can recognize the symbols for the constellations, the writing surrounding them remains a code that no one has been able to break, keeping the author's specific celestial secrets hidden. The Indus Valley civilization was not an isolated society. They were active participants in a vast, ancient trade network that stretched for thousands of miles. Archaeologists have found evidence that they traded their beautiful jewelry, cotton cloth, and copper tools with the great cities of Mesopotamia in modern-day Iraq. This shows that even 4,000 years ago, the world was more connected than we often imagine. And the mystery of their undeciphered script is even more frustrating because it likely contains records of these early international business deals and cultural exchanges. The unique soapstone seals of the Indus Valley have been found by archaeologists as far away as the Persian Gulf and the ancient cities of Sumer. These seals, often featuring images of unicorns or bulls, were likely used as tags or signatures on bundles of trade goods to show who owned them or where they came from. Finding these seals thousands of miles from the Indus River proves that these people were daring explorers and merchants. Yet because we cannot read the names on the seals, we still don't know the identities of these ancient global travelers. The dancing plague of 1518 in Strasbourg is the most famous example of a strange phenomenon, but it was certainly not the only time it happened. Throughout the Middle Ages, there were several recorded instances where groups of people would suddenly start dancing in the streets, sometimes for weeks at a time, until they collapsed from exhaustion. These events were so mysterious and frightening to people at the time that they were often called St. Vitus's Dance, named after a saint who was believed to have the power to both cause and cure the uncontrollable urge to move. When the Mary Celeste was discovered drifting silently in the ocean, one of the most puzzling facts for the rescuers was that the ship was in excellent condition and was fully stocked for a long journey. There was enough fresh food and clean water on board to last the entire crew for at least 6 months, and none of the cargo had been touched by pirates or thieves. This makes the mystery of why the captain, his family, and the crew would suddenly abandon a perfectly safe and well-supplied ship even more chilling, as it suggests they were fleeing from something they feared more than the open sea. The "wow" signal was a fleeting moment of excitement that lasted exactly 72 seconds, which was the maximum amount of time the Big Ear radio telescope could focus on any single spot in the sky as the sky, Earth, rotated. The fact that the signal lasted for the entire duration of the window and then vanished forever is what makes it so mysterious. If it had been a radio reflection from a satellite or a piece of space junk, it likely would have looked different or lasted for a different amount of time, leaving scientists to wonder if they had truly caught a brief cry. Hello from a distant civilization. The sailing stones of Death Valley are famous for being shy. They only move every few years when the conditions are exactly right, which is why it took so long for the mystery to be solved. To see them in action, the ground must first be slippery from rain. Then the temperature must drop low enough at night to form a thin sheet of ice. And finally, a steady wind must blow the next morning to glide the stones along. Because these conditions only happen once in a great while, the desert remains a place of quiet, slow-motion mystery for most of the year. The Antikythera mechanism is a masterpiece of craftsmanship, as all of its intricate gears and dials were carefully cut by hand from a single thin sheet of bronze. This required an incredible amount of patience and a deep understanding of mathematics to ensure that every tooth on every gear was perfectly spaced so the machine would provide accurate astronomical data. The level of detail is so high that researchers believe it must have been the work of a master scientist or a specialized workshop, proving that ancient Greece was a hub for high-tech innovation long before the industrial bar. Age. The Colossus of Rhodes was a breathtaking bronze statue of the sun god Helios that stood over 100 feet tall at the entrance to a busy Mediterranean harbor. It was so large that it was considered one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, representing the freedom and strength of the island's people. Sadly, this massive monument only stood for 54 years before it was toppled by a powerful earthquake. Even as it lay in ruins on the ground for centuries, it remained a mystery of ancient engineering, with visitors traveling from far away just to see the enormous fingers and limbs of the fallen god. The Pharos of Alexandria was a monumental achievement in the history of seafaring, serving as a massive lighthouse that guided sailors into the harbor of Egypt for over 1,000 years. It was one of the tallest man-made structures in the world, standing hundreds of feet high and using a giant mirror to reflect firelight for miles out to sea at night. Because it survived multiple earthquakes and lasted well into the Middle Ages, it became a symbol of the city's greatness. And its mystery lived on in the stories of travelers who marveled at how its light could be seen from the very edge of the horizon. The statue of Zeus at Olympia was a magnificent work of art created by the legendary sculptor Phidias, standing so tall inside its temple that if the god had stood up, he would have unroofed the building. The statue was chryselephantine, which means it was covered in thin plates of glowing gold and polished ivory, making it look as if the king of the gods was physically present in the room. It was considered the absolute peak of Greek sculpture, but because it was eventually moved to a different city and lost in a fire, we only know of its majestic appearance through descriptions and ancient coins. The Temple of Artemis at Ephesus was a grand structure so large and beautiful that it was said to outshine all the other wonders of the world. Dedicated to the goddess of the hunt and the wilderness, It featured over 100 massive marble columns, many of which were decorated with intricate carvings. The temple was a place of sanctuary and a center of wealth, but its history was a turbulent mystery of destruction and rebirth. It was burned down intentionally by a man seeking fame, rebuilt even larger, and eventually destroyed during various invasions, leaving only a single standing column today. The mausoleum at Halicarnassus was a grand tomb built for a powerful ruler named Mausolus, and it was so famous for its beauty and scale that his name became the origin of our modern word mausoleum. The structure was a unique blend of Greek, Egyptian, and Carian architectural styles, topped with a massive pyramid and a statue of a four-horse chariot. It stood as a silent stone mystery of power and memory for over 500 years, until it was finally dismantled by crusaders to build a castle, showing how the wonders of the ancient world were often repurposed by later generations. The Great Pyramid of Giza is the ultimate survivor of the ancient world, being the oldest of the 7 wonders and the only one that still stands mostly intact today. For over 800 years, it held the title of the tallest man-made structure on the planet, a record that wasn't broken until a cathedral spire was built in England in the 14th century. Its sheer size and the mathematical precision with which it was built, aligned almost perfectly with the points of the compass, make it an eternal mystery that continues to inspire awe in everyone who stands in its massive shadow. To understand the sheer scale of the Great Pyramid of Giza, you have to imagine the effort of moving and stacking approximately 3 million individual stone blocks, some of which weigh several tons. The logistical challenge of feeding, housing, and organizing the thousands of workers needed for such a project is a mystery that historians are still piecing together. It wasn't just a tomb, it was a national project that required the total dedication of the Egyptian people, showing how a single vision could move mountains of stone to create something that would last forever. The Great Sphinx was not built out of separate blocks, but was actually carved directly out of a single massive piece of limestone bedrock that was already present at the site. This meant the ancient sculptors had to find the lion's body and the human head within the living rock, removing the surrounding stone to let the monument emerge. Measuring 240 feet long and 66 feet high, it is one of the largest and oldest statues in the world, yet the original name given to it by its builders remains a mystery, as Sphinx is a Greek name that came much later. The Terracotta Army was hidden in total silence for over 2,000 years, until it was accidentally rediscovered in 1974 by local farmers who were simply trying to dig a new water well. They were shocked to find fragments of clay limbs and heads instead of water, leading to the discovery of one of the most significant archaeological sites in history. This lucky find reminded the world that there are still massive secrets buried just a few feet beneath the earth, waiting for the right moment to be brought back into the light. When the clay soldiers of the Terracotta Army were first made, they were not the dull grey colour we see today. They were actually painted in brilliant, lifelike colours like bright red, deep blue, and vivid purple. Each soldier was a vibrant work of art, but the paint was extremely sensitive to changes in moisture and air. When the first soldiers were excavated, the sudden exposure to the modern atmosphere caused the ancient paint to dry up and flake off in just a few seconds. This tragic loss led archaeologists to pause their work for years to find new ways to preserve the colors of the soldiers still buried in the ground. Each soldier in the Terracotta Army is a unique individual with different facial features, expressions, and even specific hairstyles and uniforms that indicate their rank in the army. Some soldiers look young and eager, while others appear older and more experienced, suggesting that the artists might have modeled them after actual people who served the emperor. This incredible attention to detail shows that the first emperor of China didn't just want a symbolic army, he wanted a perfect, life-sized recreation of his forces to protect him in the afterlife, making the site a massive mystery of clay and memory. The terracotta army is much more than just a collection of infantry. It is a full military force that includes life-sized horses, bronze chariots, and a vast collection of real weapons like swords, spears, and crossbows. Many of the weapons were found to be still sharp and coated in a protective layer of chrome, which is a modern-day mystery because chrome plating was thought to have been invented much later. This shows that the Qin dynasty had access to advanced chemical knowledge that allowed them to create an army that was functionally ready for battle, even in the silence of the tomb. The Mayan long count calendar is a fascinating and sophisticated way of tracking long periods of time that uses a base 20 mathematical system, which is different from the base 10 system we use today. By using this system, the Maya were able to calculate dates thousands of years into the past and the future with incredible accuracy. This calendar was not just for telling the time of day, but for tracking the life of the universe itself, reflecting a deep philosophical mystery of how these ancient people viewed their place in the grand cycle of existence. In the Mayan calendar, Baktun is a specific unit of time that is equal to 144,000 days, or approximately 394 years in our modern calendar. The Maya believed that history moved in great cycles, and the completion of a large number of these Baktuns was seen as a major spiritual event. To the Maya, these units were like the chapters of a long book, and reaching the end of a chapter was a time to reflect on the past and prepare for the new stories that the next cycle of time would bring. The 13th Baktun of the Mayan calendar was a date that captured the world's imagination, as it came to an end on December the 21st, 2012. Many people around the globe feared this meant the end of the world, but for the descendants of the Maya, it was simply the end of a very long cycle that had begun over 5-O-E-O-E-O years earlier. It was a moment of renewal, a time when the odometer of the universe reset to zero, showing that the real mystery of the Mayan calendar is not about destruction, but about the eternal and repeating nature of time. The Indus Valley civilization is recognized as one of the Big Three earliest civilizations in human history, standing alongside the famous cultures of Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt. While it is sometimes less talked about in schools, it was actually the largest of the three in terms of the total land area it covered, stretching across what is now Pakistan and northwest India. This vast empire featured hundreds of cities and towns that shared a similar culture and technology, making it a sprawling mystery of how such a large area was kept organized and peaceful without the large-scale wars we see in other ancient records. The people of the Indus Valley were incredibly skilled in city planning and were among the first to use a standardized system of weights and measures, which made trade and construction much easier. They were also master metalworkers and expert carvers of soapstone, creating intricate seals that served as both art and identification. This high level of organization suggests they had a strong government or a shared set of rules that everyone followed. Yet because we haven't found any grand palaces or statues of kings, the mystery of who actually led this great society remains unsolved. The Dead Sea Scrolls were not all found in one place. They were hidden across 11 different caves near the ancient ruins of Qumran, tucked away in the cliffs overlooking the sea. This suggests that the people who owned the scrolls, likely a religious group called the Essenes, were trying to protect their most valuable knowledge from an approaching army by hiding it in the most remote spots they could find. The fact that the scrolls remained safe and dry for 2,000 years in these quiet caves is a miracle of preservation that has changed our understanding of religious history. The scrolls found near the Dead Sea are a fascinating linguistic mystery because they are written in 3 different languages. Hebrew, which was the sacred language of the scriptures, Aramaic, which was the common language spoken by people in the region, and Greek, which was the language of the wider Mediterranean world. This mix of languages shows that the people who lived in the desert were part of a diverse and interconnected society, using different ways of writing to record everything from holy prayers to the daily rules of their Baal's tea. Community. The Copper Scroll is one of the most unusual mysteries of the Dead Sea collection because it was found in Cave 3 and is made entirely of a thin sheet of hammered copper rather than the usual parchment or papyrus. Because the metal was so fragile and oxidized after 2,000 years, scientists had to carefully saw the scroll into strips just to be able to read the hidden writing inside. This extra effort to record information on metal suggests that the treasure map it contains was meant to be a permanent record that could survive fire or rot, even if the treasure itself has never been found. The Rosetta Stone is no longer in Egypt. It is currently one of the most famous and visited objects on display at the British Museum in London. Since its discovery by French soldiers and its eventual transfer to the British, it has become a global symbol of the power of language and discovery. Even though it is now far from the temple where it was first placed, it continues to serve as a bridge between the modern world and the mysterious silent world of the pharaohs, allowing millions of people to see the object that unlocked the history of Egypt. The Antikythera mechanism is currently kept in the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, where it is treated as one of the most precious treasures of Greek history. Visitors can see the original corroded bronze fragments alongside modern reconstructions that show how the gears would have turned to predict the movements of the stars. It stands as a powerful mystery that reminds us that the ancient world was far more technologically advanced than we once believed, and that many great inventions may still be waiting to be found at the bottom of the sea. The original Voynich manuscript is kept in a very safe and climate-controlled vault at the Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library at Yale University. Because the book is so fragile and rare, it is almost never handled by the public, but the university has made high-resolution digital scans of every single page available for free online. This has allowed thousands of amateur code breakers and curious people from all over the world to study the strange plants and mysterious script from the comfort of their own homes, continuing the global quest to solve its doubly. Secrets. If you want to explore the mysteries of the Voynich manuscript yourself, you can easily find it through the library's official website, where you can zoom in on the tiny details of the drawings and the fluid strokes of the ass. Unknown writing. This digital access has turned the manuscript into a truly open mystery, where anyone with a computer and a keen eye can try to find patterns or clues that the experts might have missed. It is a beautiful example of how modern technology is being used to keep ancient puzzles alive and accessible for everyone. The Nazca lines were a mystery hidden from the modern world for centuries, only coming to public attention in 1927 when a Peruvian archaeologist named Toribio Mejia Zespe saw them back. While hiking through the surrounding hills, he initially thought they were ancient sacred roads, but it wasn't until people started flying over the desert in small planes that the true scale and beauty of the animal figures became clear. This reminds us that sometimes the greatest mysteries are so large, but we can only see them when we change our perspective and look at the world from a new height. After the Nazca lines were rediscovered, they were studied and protected for 40 years by a dedicated German mathematician and archaeologist named Maria Reich. She became known as the Lady of the Lines, living in a small house in the desert and personally sweeping the sand off the geoglyphs with a broom to keep them visible. Her lifelong passion and hard work are the main reason these fragile lines are still here for us to see today, showing how the mystery of the past often depends on the quiet dedication of individuals in the present. The sailing stones of Death Valley leave behind incredible tracks that can stretch for hundreds of feet across the flat playa, documenting their slow and lonely journeys across the mud. Some of the tracks are perfectly straight, while others are curved or even zigzagged, looking like the stones were intentionally wandering around. For a long time, these tracks were the only evidence we had that the stones were moving at all, serving as a silent, physical record of a natural mystery that happens only when the rest of the world is not looking. One of the most interesting details about the sailing stones is that some of them move in perfectly parallel lines, as if they are marching together, while others nearby might move in completely different directions or even dar pra, turn in circles. This happens because the large sheets of ice that push them can sometimes break apart or rotate, carrying different stones on different paths. This variety in the tracks is what made the mystery so hard to solve, as it looked like each stone had a mind of its own as it traveled across the desert floor. The Taos hum is a mysterious low-frequency sound that has been reported by a small number of residents in the town of Taos, New Mexico, often described as the low thrumming of a distant diesel engine idling. While it is very real to the people who hear it, scientists who have brought in sensitive microphones and recording equipment have often failed to pick up any unusual noise at all. This has led to many theories, ranging from secret underground bases to a unique way that some people's ears process natural background vibrations, making it a very personal and lingering mystery of the Southwest. The wow signal got its famous name because of a simple human reaction from an astronomer named Jerry Amon. While he was reviewing the computer printouts of the radio data from the Big Ear telescope, he saw a sequence of letters and numbers that represented a signal far stronger and more focused than anything else in space. Surprised and excited by what he saw, he grabbed a red pen and wrote the word "wow" right on the paper. That single word has now become the permanent name for one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in the history of science and the search for life beyond Earth. The signal detected in 1977 was incredibly unique because it was more than 30 times stronger than the natural hiss or background noise of deep space. In the world of radio astronomy, space is usually a very noisy place filled with random static, so finding a signal that is so clear and powerful is like hearing a single, perfect musical note in the middle of a car. Loud, crashing storm. The fact that it was so distinct is why scientists are still talking about it today, even though the source of that note remains a total mystery. The mystery of the dancing plague of 1518 remains one of the most bizarre chapters in human history, beginning when a woman named Frau Troffier stepped into a street in Strasbourg and began to dance fervently without any music. What started as a solo act quickly turned into a terrifying epidemic, as dozens, then hundreds of people joined her, dancing for days on end until their feet bled and they collapsed from sheer exhaustion or heart failure. Local doctors and authorities were so baffled that they actually encouraged more dancing, believing the only way to cure the victims was to let them dance the sickness out of their systems, even going so far as to build a wooden stage and hire professional musicians to keep the rhythm going. Modern scientists wonder if this was caused by ergotism, a type of food poisoning from moldy rye bread that can cause hallucinations and spasms, or if it was a massive case of stress-induced psychosis, brought on by the extreme famine and disease that plagued the city at that time. When the Mary Celeste was found abandoned in 1872, the most haunting detail was that the ship was still perfectly seaworthy, with its sails partially set and its cargo of 701 barrels of industrial alcohol completely intact. There were no signs of a violent struggle, no bloodstains, and the captain's logbook was still in the cabin, with the last entry recorded just 9 days earlier showing nothing unusual. The only thing missing was the single lifeboat and the 10 people who had been on board, including the captain's wife and young daughter. Because the ship wasn't sinking and hadn't been looted, historians have spent over a century debating what could have been so terrifying that it forced an experienced crew to flee into a small boat in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Some suggest a pump failure made them think they were sinking, while others believe fumes from the alcohol cargo created a fear of an imminent explosion. The wow signal is the most famous piece of evidence in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, lasting for a full 72 seconds before vanishing into the silence of the cosmos forever. It wasn't just a random beep. The signal was broadcast at a frequency very close to that of hydrogen, which scientists believe is a universal language that any advanced civilization would use to get someone's attention across the stars. Since that night in 1977, astronomers have pointed their most powerful telescopes back at that same spot in the constellation Sagittarius, thousands of times, hoping for a repeat performance, but they have met only static. This one-hit wonder from deep space remains a profound mystery. Was it a brief, accidental broadcast from a passing alien ship, or just a rare natural phenomenon involving a passing comet that we haven't been able to replicate since? The sailing stones of Death Valley were a source of local legend for decades because people would find heavy rocks at the end of long, winding trails in the mud, yet no one had ever actually seen them move. Some of these stones weigh as much as a human being, and their tracks showed them turning sharp corners or traveling in perfectly straight lines for hundreds of feet across the flat, dry lakebed known as Racetrack Playa. It wasn't until 2014, when researchers used GPS trackers and time-lapse cameras, that the mystery was finally solved. In the winter, a thin layer of water on the playa freezes into windowpane ice that is as thin as a sheet of glass. When the sun begins to melt this ice into large, floating panels, a light breeze is enough to push the ice against the rocks, sliding them across the slippery mud like a slow-motion hockey puck, leaving a trail behind that hardens when the mud dries. The Colossus of Rhodes was so magnificent that it inspired the look of the modern Statue of Liberty, standing as a 100-foot-tall bronze tribute to the sun god after a great military victory. It was built using the melted-down bronze weapons and armor left behind by a defeated invading army, symbolizing turning tools of war into a monument of peace. The statue was an engineering marvel of its time, featuring a hollow interior reinforced with iron bars and heavy stone blocks to keep it upright against the strong sea winds. Even though it fell during an earthquake only 54 years after it was finished, the ruins were so impressive that they stayed on the ground for over 800 years, becoming a world-famous tourist attraction where people would travel for weeks just to try and wrap their arms around the statue's giant thumb. The Pharos of Alexandria was much more than just a simple lighthouse. It was a 3-story architectural masterpiece that served as the primary gateway to the ancient world's greatest center of learning. The bottom section was a massive square base. The middle was an elegant octagon, and the top was a circular tower where a fire burned brightly every night, reflected by a giant bronze mirror that could reportedly be seen by Endar sailors 30 miles away. It was built with such incredible strength that it survived dozens of earthquakes over 1,000 years, finally crumbling in the 14th century. Today, divers have found massive stone blocks and statues from the lighthouse resting on the seafloor in Alexandria's harbor, providing us with physical clues to rebuild the mystery of what this ancient skyscraper actually looked like. The statue of Zeus at Olympia was a living god to the ancient Greeks, and the detail was so realistic that people claimed the ivory skin seemed to breathe under the golden robes. The sculptor, Phidias, even built a special viewing platform in the temple so that visitors could climb up and look the 40-foot-tall king of the gods directly in the eye. To keep the ivory from cracking in the humid climate of Olympia, the priests had to constantly rub the statue with olive oil, which also served to make the gold reflect the light even more brilliantly. When the statue was eventually lost, likely taken to a palace in Constantinople where it burned in a great fire, it left behind a void in the world of art that has never truly been filled, leaving us only with descriptions of its overwhelming beauty. The Temple of Artemis was a forest of marble, with 127 columns that each stood 60 feet high, creating a building so vast that it was said to be the first Greek temple ever built entirely of marble. It wasn't just a place for prayer, it was a bustling economic hub that functioned like a modern bank, where people could safely store their wealth under the protection of the goddess. The mystery of its beauty was so great that when a man named Herostratus burned it to the ground in 356 BC, just to make his name famous, the citizens of Ephesus were so outraged they passed a law making it illegal to ever speak his name again. Despite being destroyed and rebuilt multiple times, its legacy as a symbol of elegance and sanctuary remains a cornerstone of ancient history. The mausoleum at Halicarnassus was a tomb so grand that it actually sat on a massive podium surrounded by 36 beautiful columns and was topped by a 24-step pyramid. The entire structure was decorated with life-sized statues of lions, warriors, and gods carved by the 4 greatest sculptors of the time, each of whom took charge of one side of the building to compete for the most beautiful design. It was a physical representation of the blend of cultures in the ancient Middle East, mixing the styles of Greece and Egypt into something entirely new. Even after it was destroyed by earthquakes and its stones were used to build a nearby castle, the word mausoleum survived as a permanent tribute to the mystery of how a single tomb could change the way we think about honoring the dead. The Great Pyramid of Giza is a masterpiece of golden ratio mathematics, which is a specific proportion that humans naturally find beautiful and is found throughout nature, from the spiral of a seashell to the CCA shape of a galaxy. The ancient Egyptians managed to build this massive structure with such precision that the 4 sides of the base have an average error of only a few inches, a level of accuracy that is hard to achieve even with modern laser or surveying tools. Inside the pyramid, the mystery deepens with the king's chamber, which contains a massive red granite sarcophagus that is actually wider than the doorway to the room, proving that it must have been placed there while the pyramid was still being built around it. The Great Sphinx of Egypt has a body that is significantly more weathered and eroded than its head, which has led many researchers to wonder if the head we see today was actually recarved by a later pharaoh. Some believe the statue originally had the head of a lion or perhaps a different god, and that it was changed thousands of years later to look like a human king. This theory might explain why the head looks a bit too small for the massive lion body, and it adds another layer to the mystery of who originally looked out over the sands of Giza. Additionally, the discovery of several hollow cavities and tunnels beneath the Sphinx has fueled legends of a hall of records hidden deep underground, though no such library has ever been found. The Terracotta Army was part of a larger, invisible city built for the afterlife, which included clay acrobats, musicians, and even government officials to ensure the emperor had everything he needed to rule in the Ekotar next world. The level of organization is staggering. Researchers have found that the soldiers were built using a modular system, where different types of heads, arms, and torsos were mass-produced and then assembled in different combinations to create thousands of unique individuals. This ancient assembly line process allowed for the creation of an entire army in a relatively short amount of time, a mystery of industrial-scale production that wouldn't be seen again for nearly 2,000 years. The Mayan long count calendar was so accurate that it could track time over millions of years, and it was used by Mayan priests to plan important events like the crowning of kings or the start of a planting season. They believed that time was a physical thing that could be carried by the gods, and each day was like a burden that a different god would carry on their back. This beautiful and complex way of seeing the world meant that for the Maya, the calendar wasn't just a tool, but a living part of the universe that kept everything in balance. When a cycle ended, it wasn't a reason for fear, but a moment of deep spiritual gratitude that the world was beginning its journey once again. The Indus Valley civilization is a mystery of missing pieces. Despite being one of the most advanced societies of its time, we have found no evidence of a single great king, no grand burial mounds for royalty, no signs of a central Ali. This has led some historians to wonder if they lived in a truly unique way, perhaps as a collection of independent city-states that worked together through trade and shared laws rather than through force. Their focus on the common good, like their incredible public baths and clean streets, suggests a society that valued the health and happiness of all its citizens, making it a very modern-feeling mystery from the ancient key, past. The Dead Sea Scrolls are like a time machine for language, because they contain words and phrases that haven't been spoken for over 2,000 years. By studying the way the words were written on the parchment, linguists can see how the Hebrew language evolved and changed during a very turbulent time in history. Some of the scrolls are not religious at all, but are personal letters, lists of supplies, and even community rules that tell us what people liked to eat, how they dressed, and how they settled arguments. These small, everyday details are the real treasure of the scrolls, turning a dusty archaeological find into a vibrant story of human life. The Great Blue Hole of Belize is far more than just a beautiful spot for divers. It is a geological time capsule that reveals the dramatic history of our planet's changing climate. This massive underwater sinkhole was originally a dry limestone cave system formed during past ice ages when sea levels were much lower. As rainwater dripped through the cave ceilings over thousands of years, it created enormous stalactites and stalagmites rock formations that looked like giant icicles. When the ice caps melted and the ocean rose, the cave was flooded, and its roof eventually collapsed, leaving a perfect circular hole. By studying these submerged stone icicles, scientists can actually track periods of extreme drought or heavy rain from 10,000 years ago, helping us understand how the Earth's weather has shifted over vast amounts of time. The Sanxingdui bronze masks from China represent one of the most startling, lost chapters of human history, featuring facial features so exaggerated and strange that they look like something out of a Tanner science fiction movie. Discovered in sacrificial pits, these masks have eyes that protrude like cylinders and ears that flare out like wings, which is completely different from any other ancient Chinese art found from that era. Because this civilization left behind no written records, we are left to wonder if these masks were portraits of god-kings, representations of spirits with supernatural sight and hearing, or perhaps even masks worn by shamans during elaborate rituals. The mystery is deepened by the fact that the people of Sanxingdui seem to have intentionally broken and burned these priceless treasures before burying them and abandoning their city forever. The Winchester Mystery House is a physical manifestation of one woman's grief and her descent into a very specific kind of architectural madness. Sarah Winchester, the widow of the famous rifle magnate, believed that the only way to appease the spirits of those killed by Winchester rifles was to keep her house under constant construction. For 38 years, the sounds of hammers and saws never stopped, resulting in a 160-room labyrinth filled with dead ends. You can find staircases that lead directly into the ceiling, secret, easy-step hallways designed for her arthritis that twist like snakes, and windows built into the floor. While some see it as a haunted house, others see it as the world's most expensive puzzler place, where a woman tried to outrun her ghosts by building a home they could never navigate. The Baghdad Battery is a collection of artifacts that challenges everything we thought we knew about the history of technology and electricity. Found in a village in Iraq, these clay jars contain a copper cylinder with an iron rod suspended inside, a setup that looks remarkably like a modern-day battery cell. When researchers filled replicas of these jars with common ancient liquids like grape juice or vinegar, they were surprised to find that the jars actually produced a small electric current of about 1 volt. This leads to a fascinating mystery, where ancient people using electricity to electroplate gold onto silver jewelry, or perhaps using the mild shocks in religious ceremonies to make people believe a statue was magically charged. While we don't have a manual for how they were used, the possibility of ancient electricity remains one of the most debated topics in archaeology. The bloop was a sound so loud and so powerful that it was picked up by underwater sensors nearly 3,000 miles apart, sparking a global mystery about what could be living in the deepest, darkest parts of our oceans. Because the sound had a biological quality meaning, it sounded like it came from a living creature. Many people speculated it was a sea monster far larger than a blue whale. However, after years of analyzing the data, scientists realized the sound matched the acoustic signature of a seaquake or an icequake. When massive icebergs crack and break off the Antarctic shelf, the sound vibrates through the water with incredible force. This solved the monster mystery, but replaced it with a new awe for the sheer, earth-shaking power of our planet's polar ice. The Iserisenwelt ice cave in Austria is a natural ice palace, hidden deep inside a limestone mountain, and it stays frozen all year long because of a clever trick of physics known as the chimney effect. The cave has openings at different heights in the winter. Cold air sinks into the mountain and gets trapped in the lower chambers. In the summer, the heavy cold air stays put, while the warmer air outside tries to push in, creating a natural refrigeration system that keeps the towering ice walls and frozen waterfalls from melting. For centuries, people were too terrified to enter the world of the ice giants, believing it was a gateway to a cold and unforgiving underworld, making it a place where folklore and science meet in the dark. Skara Brae is often called the British Pompeii because it is a perfectly preserved Neolithic village that was hidden under sand dunes for thousands of years until a massive storm revealed it in T. 1850. What makes this site a cozy mystery is that the houses were built with stone furniture that still stands today. You can see stone beds, dressers with shelves, and even the primitive indoor plumbing system. The village was designed so that the homes were linked by covered passages, allowing the families to visit each other without stepping out into the freezing Atlantic wind. This gives us an incredibly intimate look at the everyday lives of people from 5,000 years ago, showing that they valued comfort, community, and a warm place to sleep just as much as we do today. The Sajama lions of Bolivia are perhaps the world's largest work of art, consisting of thousands of perfectly straight paths cut into the high-altitude desert. Unlike the Nazca lines, which are images of animals, these lines go on for miles in every direction, forming a web that covers an area 15 times larger than the famous site in Peru. These lines weren't made by a single king or a central government. They were created over thousands of years by the feet of local people walking to sacred shrines. Every time a pilgrim walked a path, they scraped away the dark volcanic rock to reveal the lighter soil beneath. It is a mystery of collective human effortea, massive map of sacred movement that was built one footstep at a time.